Hello, welcome to the next installment of my true crime series. For this episode, we are going to do one that is not very original. There's so many documentaries, movies, miniseries. There's a lot of information out there. We're talking about Ted Bundy today. Ted Bundy, the man who needs no introduction. What can I personally say that hasn't been said? Absolutely nothing. I bring nothing new to the table. I can't do a true crime series without including Ted Bundy. You dig? Okay? So I got my hair parted down the middle. I got my tie-dye. Let's do this. Let's talk about Ted Bundy today, shall we? Who's excited? Okay, so like any good true crime story, we must start at the beginning. And the beginning for Ted Bundy is November 24th, 1946 in Burlington, Vermont, the other side of the country. Ted Bundy was born Louise Cowell. Now, Louise Cowell was a single unwed mother, and at the time that was very no, you don't do that. So, the family did what the family did, which they thought was best, which was to send her off to a home for unwed mothers. Louise didn't want to keep the baby, actually, and the fact of the matter is let's just get this out of the way right now. No one's entirely sure who Ted Bundy's biological father is. There's some rumors and speculation that it's Grandpa. That's my personal opinion. I think it's Grandpa too, because Grandpa was a very abusive, horrible human being. Louise is in this home for unwed mothers. She just wants to come home. She wants to forget this whole thing ever happened. Family's like, no, bring the baby with you. We're gonna just do the normal run-of-the-mill thing, which is we're gonna pretend that your baby is our baby, and you, even though you're her mother, you're gonna be his sister, and we're gonna be the parents. And it's all gonna make sense, and everyone in the town is totally gonna buy it. I mean, did they really buy it? Did anyone buy this story back in the day? Ted Bundy doesn't talk much about his early childhood. He does talk fondly about his grandfather, which I think is very strange, because let me tell you something about the grandfather here. He was a horrible human being. He was abusive. He was an alcoholic. His wife was agoraphobic. She basically, I think towards the end of her life, she was completely shut in. And another thing about Grandpa Cowell is he abused animals. Yeah. He loved to abuse animals. He loved to abuse neighborhood cats, and just keep your animals away from Grandpa Cowell, okay? Not a good guy. But Ted had like the utmost respect for Grandpa. So when Louise took Ted and moved to Tacoma, Washington, I don't think Ted was very happy about this. I mean, for one, Ted still thinks that his mother is his sister. I mean, didn't you find it a little suspicious that you were moving clear across the country away from your parents with your sister? So they moved to Tacoma, and Louise falls in love with a man named John Bundy. And John Bundy adopts Ted, and Ted changes his name from Cowell to Bundy. Now, Ted's childhood, adolescence, teenage years, he made himself out to be better than he was, but let's be honest, he really wasn't. He was very shy. He had a stutter. He joined the Boy Scouts, and he did some interesting things. Some red flags should have been raised. Once again, like with Gary Ridgway, there were lots of red flags that people were just like, yeah, that's fine. That's totally normal. That's just boys being boys. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's going to be the poster child for the Boy Scouts of America anytime soon, and I don't even think the Boy Scouts of America want to claim him, but he was. And he couldn't shoot, he couldn't win races, he couldn't tie knots. I mean, he wasn't a very good Boy Scout. So But he also did this thing where he built tiger traps, you know, where you dug out a hole in the ground and then put up stakes and then covered it up. Well, a girl actually fell into Ted's trap and she like scraped the skin off her leg, like bad. So Ted just, he was always kind of slightly ashamed of his stepfather because the stepfather was like working class, didn't make a lot of money. You know, Ted he'd like to present himself upward mobility. Like he wanted to, you know, have the best of everything, and his stepdad just wasn't cutting it. So I'm just gonna say right now, I don't get why people are infatuated by him. He's a monster. Ted enrolls in college at University of Puget Sound in Tacoma. It's a little known school, and you know, like I said, he had big aspirations and big dreams, and this school was small potatoes for Ted. But you know, he did eventually transfer to the University of Washington, and he actually, when he went to school, he majored in psychology. Now, he even actually volunteered in a crisis clinic, and that's where he met author Anne Rule. Anne Rule is a true crime detective. She wrote The Stranger Beside Me. She wrote Green River Running Red. She wrote a book about the I-5 killer. She's written a lot of true crime novels in her time. And she had known him from working at the crisis center, where Ted actually, for once in his life, saved lives instead of taking lives. Once Ted got into college, he started hitting his stride. He joined the Republican Party and he started campaigning, and he met a lot of people. And that's where he met his first girlfriend, the love of his life, Diane Edwards. Now, he was smitten by Diane Edwards. I believe they met in the late 60s, 1966, I want to say. And she was everything he wanted to be. She was wealthy. She came from a good, wealthy family in San Francisco. She had money. She had status. She had connections. She was beautiful. Was in love with Diane. Ted and Diane sitting in a tree, just in love in Diane's luxury vehicle. They were out going for drives. They were making out, whispering sweet nothings in each other's ears. I think that's just, I don't even want to imagine Ted Bundy doing that. So Diane passes on Ted after a while. He's just not what she wants. He doesn't quite measure up, so to speak. And Ted is devastated. His heart is broken. I think she dumped him at around 1969. And Ted was just beyond devastated. And that's about the time Ted Bundy found his birth certificate and found out that there was no father listed and that he was listed as illegitimate, which just doesn't fit his narrative. You know, I'm sure it kind of solidified in his brain, well, no wonder Diane dumped me. I don't even have a father listed on my birth certificate. Well, that's right, dude, you don't. You do kind of suck. Sorry. So anyways, one night Ted goes out to a bar and he meets Liz Klepfer. Liz Klepfer is a single mother from Utah. So Liz met Ted at a bar in September of 1969 in the U District. I believe the bar was called the Sandpiper. I don't think it actually exists to this day, but that's where they met. And Ted goes home with her. She passes out. And she wakes up the next morning and Ted has gotten up her daughter, Molly, and is making Molly breakfast, and just, she's smitten. Who wouldn't be? What single mother in 1969 wouldn't be smitten by that? So no shade to Liz, you know what I'm saying? Liz also had a really bad alcohol problem. She had some serious issues with the drinky. And she had a good job at the University of Washington. I believe she was like a secretary, but you know, she was supporting herself and her child. So, hey girl, do your thing. Anyway, so she fell in love with Ted. She was just over the moon, and Ted was just like in love with Diane. Honestly, really? Okay, so here's where it gets a little bit messy. So Ted is still obsessed with Diane, and he's dating Liz. You think Liz caught on? Probably. I think most of us ladies would catch on if our man that we're seeing is oogling someone else, even if that person's not around. So Ted starts pulling himself together. He's decided he's going to go to law school. He starts applying to Ivy League colleges. Like, he just has like the ego. Like, he thinks, I'll just apply to Harvard. They'll definitely let me in. I mean, do they know who I am? They're about to find out who I am. And so he starts getting this air about him. Like, you know, he's working for the governor's election and for the Republican Party. He's meeting all these people. He thinks he's got it going on, and people are enamored by him. They like him. He's very personable. He's easy to talk to. He's attractive. Again, I don't see it, but okay. So Ted decides that, okay, I'm gonna get Diane back. And he hatches this little plan. Now, I don't know if he had this plan from the get-go, but let me tell you what happened. You probably already know, but I'm gonna tell the story anyways. So he flies down to San Francisco, calls her up. He's like, hey girl, what are you doing? She's like, not much. What are you doing? He's like, well, I'm in town. Want to get dinner? And she's like, yeah, okay, I guess. I don't have anything going on tonight. Might as well. He's like, see you there, boo. Hung up. They go meet, and she's like, and he sits down and he just talks her up, and she's like, who is this? This isn't the Ted I knew. Oh, you've been working where? You applied to what Ivy League school? Oh my God, what has happened here? I'm all aflutter. And he's just like, yeah, girl. So, you know, I like applied to Yale and Harvard, but like, no big deal. Yeah, so the other day I like was in Washington, you know, for work. So annoying. Anyways, enough about me. How are you, girl? How are you doing? Do you think he left out the detail that he was seeing someone else? Probably. Anyways, so she's like, shouldn't have passed on this guy. No, girl, you should have passed and you did the right thing. But we'll continue. So she goes up to Seattle. They meet. They are dating. Did I mention he's still seeing Liz? Liz, the single mother with the small child from Utah. Liz, the Mormon. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's cool. Yeah, he's Ted Bundy, you guys. Anyways, so then this thing happens. Ted proposes to Diane. He's like, hey boo, wanna get married? And she's like, yes, I do. And then Ted dumps her. Yeah. He's literally like, a new phone, who dis? So this all went down at about early 1974. Now that's the time. Now during this time also, I want to throw in that Ted had a serious problem with shoplifting. He was kind of a klepto, and he loved to peek in women's windows and masturbate while they're undressing or just, you know, living their normal life in the privacy of their own home. So he starts casing this one house with this girl, Karen Sparks. Karen Sparks had a basement apartment or a basement room that she shared with 4 other dudes in the U District. Ted was casing the joint, and one night he snuck into her room, with a crowbar, beat her over the head, and then he just couldn't stop. Like once he started beating her, he could not stop. He actually even ripped apart a metal frame from her headboard and sexually assaulted her with the metal frame. Now, Karen Sparks lived. She suffered severe brain injuries. She is partially deaf, partially blind, and he actually, when he assaulted her with the bed frame, he like broke her bladder, so to speak, but she did live. And that was January 4th, 1974. So he's kind of like, ooh, that was fun. How about we take it up a notch? So the second victim was Linda Ann Healy. He loves his ladies to be attractive, long dark hair, parted down the middle, because that's what Diane looked like. He has a type. Linda Ann Healy definitely had dark hair, parted down the middle. She was very attractive. She was a senior at the University of Washington, and she was on the radio. She gave out the ski reports. She was very well known to anyone who skied. Ted knew her from the ski reports because Ted actually took up skiing with good old Diane, and he had quite a liking to skiing, so he was aware of who she was. And so February 3rd, 1974, he snuck into her apartment and he beat her on the head with a crowbar, knocked her unconscious. Then while she's unconscious, he changes her out of her bloody nightgown, dresses her in jeans and a shirt, makes her bed up all nice and tidy, hides the nightgown in her closet, and takes her from her home. He takes her to another location, and then he rapes her and murders her by strangulation. So the girls wake up and they get a phone call from the radio. Hey, where's Linda? She's not here. That's unusual. Linda was very responsible. So they were like, well, where'd she go? No one knew. And then they called the police. The police came, and the police discovered a blood stain on her mattress when they pulled the bed back. They didn't know that because Ted had the forethought to make the bed. So that shows, definite intent there. So, and now, basically Ted has just hit the ground running. And we'll move on to the next victim. So in March 1974, he picks up Donna Manson. And Donna was from the Evergreen State College, which is in Olympia, Washington. He picked her up there. Now this is where I want to discuss something that I feel is left out, which is how women are raised to be pleasing, helpful, polite, kind, and, generally just helpful. So Ted preyed on this. He knew he could prey on this. And this is why I hate him even more. So Ted would do this thing where he would pretend to be injured. He would have his arm in a cast, or he would be on crutches, and he'd have some books, and he'd be like hobbling along like, I'm so injured. Somebody help me. And these girls were like, oh, that's sad. Well, here, let me help you with my books. And even, and I'm sure some of them probably got a really weird vibe, like some dude, like you're walking, like you have like some class and it's getting dark because, it's winter and it just gets dark early. Like say you have like a 3 o'clock class and you get out at 4, it starts getting dark and you're walking to your car and you see this guy on crutches being like, I can't get to my car. And he's not exactly under a street light and you're kind of getting like a little skeeved out, but he's like, hey, can you help me? And he's like looking at you like, you're gonna help me, right? And you're like, yeah, totally. And even though you're like, red flag, red flag, red flag, you're like, but he's injured. Of course I'm gonna help him. Like, it's terrible. Like, what he did is so awful. He knew how to get women. It's disgusting. Next victim was in April. Susan Raincourt. Now, Susan Raincourt went to Central Washington University, which is in Ellensburg, Washington, which is technically on the other side of the Cascade Range in eastern Washington, but it's not too far from Seattle. So she was a really good student. She was a 4.0 student. She was a biology major. She had 2 jobs, and I mean, she's just a little busy bee, you know, she worked hard. So I believe she wanted to go into law enforcement too, which makes it kind of sad. Anyways, Susan actually left to go to an advisors meeting at the university, and she had even thrown in a load of laundry into the washing machine and then went off, and Ted picked her up, probably with the stupid Cass story again, dropping books and hiding the crowbar behind his back like, ew, I chopped my books. And she's like, oh, poor guy. And then she bends down and he, boop. Oh, you know what I mean? Anyways, it's actually, you know, stated like someone got upset that Susan left her clothes in the wash and they threw them on the table, like in a fit of rage, like, oh my God, come get your fucking laundry. Yeah. Next victim was in May. He was doing like 1 a month, you know? He's pretty consistent. Good for him. You know, you gotta be consistent. Am I right? Anyways, next victim was in May, Roberta Parks. Same. Now she was from Oregon. Well, this guy gets around to other universities. He's getting out there, you know, he's branching out, checking out other universities. Him and his cast out there, you know. And then in June, he decided to step it up a notch, and he took out 2 girls. First one was Brenda Ball. So, funny story. Ted picked up Brenda in a bar near Burien, Washington, where I grew up. And the bar at the time was called the Flame Tavern. Actually, fun fact, that tavern is where I had my first adult beverage legally. That bar. I had no idea. I had no idea. Anyways, he picked her up there. And the next girl was Georgianne Hawkins. Georgianne Hawkins was particularly striking. She was very pretty. So she lived on Greek Row, and there's an alley behind the houses, and she was studying down the street, I believe at her boyfriend's house. She was studying, she went up the alley to go back to her sorority, and she vanished. Now, there were witnesses who saw a man with a briefcase on crutches. Yet again, here we go. And he took her. Now, there's a thing, like if you watch an interview with, or listen to an interview with Ted Bundy, he actually talks about Georgianne in particular, which is she was kind of conscious in his car. Like he bashed her on the head, put her in the car, probably handcuffed her, and drove up to Taylor Mountain, I believe. I did go up to Taylor Mountain to one of the major dump sites. And I was creeped out. I did not want to stay up there. I think if I didn't know, I probably would enjoy it, but because I knew what it where I was, it was creepy as all hell. Like it felt like the air felt thick. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it felt heavy up there. Anyway, so as he's driving, she is actually like talking gibberish. Ted says he's talking about like she thinks that he's her Spanish tutor, which he thought was funny. And I'm thinking she's probably saying that because she has a head injury. Never found because they were dumped in the woods, and probably nature ran its course with her. So that brings us to July 1974. Now, Ted got accepted to law school in Utah. So he's planning a big move at the end of the summer to Utah, but you know, he's gonna go out with a bang. So on July 14th, it was a really hot summer day. Everyone's like on a hot summer day in Washington State, we're all running to some sort of water source. And if you live on the east side, that's probably Lake Sammamish. Lake Sammamish is a great place. It's a really great park. There's lots of trails, lots of space. It's great. It's a great place to go on a nice sunny day. And there's a lake you can swim in, and it's a decent lake too. So it's not gross. Like Green Lake is gross. Lake Sammamish is kind of nice. If you're from Washington State and you know of Green Lake, you know.
As Ted saw it, his future was dim. The goals he had pursued for more than half a decade had disappeared in a puff of smoke.
That playground definitely wasn't there. This is all redone. This is the beach portion of Lake Sammamish. It's actually a really nice place to come on a summer day. Walking trails. Well, let's go down to the lake, shall we? I don't think this is where it went down, but you'll get the gist. This is the nice part of the park though, trust me. The other part of the park, it's kind of rickety. We stay here. So, this is where you can swim. A lot of boats. And then if you walk that way, you will get over to the older part of the park, and you can maybe see I-90. It's like literally right off I-90. There's some like really nice $1 million homes. The weather's kind of poopy. There you have it. There's actual footage from that day because Rainier Beer had their company picnic there that day, so it was just packed. Like, I think they said there was like 40,000 people at Lake Sammamish, which, yeah, you could fit 40,000 people there. It's no problem. It's a big park. I'm telling you, it's big. So Ted comes down, you know, in his cute little white shorts and his arm in a sling, and he approaches his first victim, which is Janice Ott. Janice Ott went down to the beach by herself for the day. She just was gonna go lay out, like she's doing what I would have done on a nice sunny day, and you're like, I'm just gonna go hang out, take a book, get some sun, relax, maybe get a little swim in. And this dude comes walking up to her and he's like, hey, can you help me load in my sailboat? And a witness actually saw her like kind of get up and like look slightly annoyed. Like, I don't really want to help this guy, but I feel obligated. Here we go again with him preying on women's weaknesses. Like, gotta help the guy out, you know, gotta be nice, gotta be pleasant. Like, clearly he's injured. Like, did it occur to anyone, why is a guy in a cast asking for help with his sailboat? How are you gonna sail if your arm's busted? I'm not trying to put down the girls. Not at all. Not even close. And I wonder if that went through their minds too, and they still were like, I guess, sure. You know, and I'm sure he was like, it's just right over here. It'll just take a second. It'll just take a minute, you know. I'll let you get back to whatever it is you're doing. And they're like, okay. And then I'm sure once they approach the Volkswagen, they're like, okay, you gonna load a sailboat onto your Volkswagen? That makes no damn sense either. You have to remember, this is 1974. Like, this was a different time. Like, women were just, like, the ERA was just getting started. Femme mystique was out. People were burning the bras, but yet there was still major sexism. Like, 70s was just such a horribly sexist time that this is what enrages me about Ted, is like, he knows that we're just programmed, women are just programmed to just help. No matter how badly our instincts might be screaming at us, we're like, okay, I'll help you. Even though everything in you was going, don't do it. You're like, okay, sure. Yeah, that's fine. It's just awful, man. It's so terrible. It's such a horrible way to prey on people. You know what I mean? It's disgusting to me. Anyways, so he gets her. He takes her like 3 miles away. Like, at the time, Issaquah wasn't very developed. Issaquah is a very nice part. I like Issaquah a lot personally. I would take people visiting to Issaquah because it is a very nice area. It's still not very developed, but it's a lot more developed than it was. So he didn't have to take them far, like maybe a 3-minute drive to an isolated location. So then Ted goes back to Lake Sammamish. He's not done. No. And that's when he comes into contact with Denise Naslund. Denise Naslund was there with her boyfriend. And she and her boyfriend and her friends, and she got up and went to the bathroom, and Ted kind of intercepted her at the bathroom. And he's like, hey, can you help me with my sailboat? Broken arm. And she's probably like, he's like, it'll only take a second. Like, come on, you can go sail with me. Okay, I have a boyfriend. That's fine, it'll just take a second. Once again, gets to the car. I mean, geez, these girls, these poor girls, it's so awful. It's almost like I can almost read exactly what they're going through. Like, I can just feel it, them approaching that car and being like, come on, man, are you serious? Well, my sailboat's actually down the street. And you're like, Denise's boyfriend is like, where's Denise? Where'd she, has anyone seen her? And so they call the police and they're looking, and you can actually see police looking for Denise in the footage. Oh, it's so freaky to watch. It's so freaky. So I don't know. The rumor is that he killed one while he made the other one watch. Can you imagine what these girls went through at the end? It's just unimaginable. When I see his face, all I can think about is what those girls went through. And I'm disgusted. I'm appalled. What a monster. Liz is suspicious of Ted. She's at his place. She's smelling all these funky ass odors. She's like, what the hell is that? And he's like, oh, I left a sandwich out. She's like, shit, that ain't no sandwich. It smells fucking like something's dying up in here. he's like, oh, it's just a sandwich. And then she's like opening his medicine cabinet. She's like, why the fuck do you have plaster of Paris? And when did you need crutches? What's with the hammer? Excuse me, what's with the handcuffs? So she sees the news story. Everyone sees the news story. Like 2 girls in one day. What the fuck? She sees this and she's like, shit. Whoa, that looks like Ted. And he gave his real name too, like, good job. And so she calls the police station and they let it go because the color doesn't exactly match. Okay. I mean, close enough. I mean, you can at least look into it. But if you're his girlfriend, you're probably like looking for some sort of confirmation that it's fine. So then Ted goes to Utah. Now we're gonna have to move forward a little bit faster. I mean, there's once again so many victims. I want to highlight them all, but I will talk about one victim in particular because one got away and she was instrumental in catching Ted Bundy and exposing him for the monster that he is. So he's chilling in Salt Lake, going to law school, I guess. I don't know what his attendance was like. I mean, this must keep him pretty busy. And he sees this, once again, very strikingly pretty girl, Carol DeRanche, at a mall outside Salt Lake, Murray, Utah. Carol DeRanche had this sweet Camaro. Like, she really loved this car. She had like a really good job. She was working for the phone company. She was doing really great. Like, she even said, like, I didn't have a care in the world at this time. Like, I was just at the mall trying to figure out what I was going to do. It was Friday night. Like, let's start my night at the mall and we'll see where the night takes us. Okay. So she's standing outside a bookstore, which, hey girl, don't let anyone get between you and book shopping, okay? It's like, ma'am, do you own this Camaro? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, somebody broke into it. And she's like, what the fuck? What, are you serious? And he introduces himself as Detective Roseland. Okay, I mean, hey, at least he ditched the cast. So that's great. So she follows, they go out to her car and she's looking in the car and he's like, are you sure nothing's missing? And she says even too, like, I think he wanted me to like look real close so he could get me on the back of my head, which I'm like, probably. And she's like, there's nothing missing. And he's like, well, do you want to go down to the police station and file a report? And she's like, do you have some identification? Because she thinks she smells alcohol on his breath too. Like, she's getting the red flags. I'm like, yes, girl, trust your instincts. And so he shows her some identification, forged, obviously, and especially back in that day, like, how hard would it be to forge documents like that, you know? So she looks at it and she's like, oh, okay. So she goes over to the car, and of course it's a VW, and she's like, okay, he must be working undercover, maybe. She gets in the car, and that's when everything changes. Like, he pulls over somewhere. He tries to get a handcuff on her. He only gets on one arm, and she starts fighting. She's just like going at it. She's not gonna let him, she's not going down without a fight. Good for you, girl. Good for you. And she manages to get away, and she files a police report. Good on her. The saddest part about the whole thing, though, is Ted is so enraged that she got away that he goes and gets another victim 4 hours later. And her name was Debbie Kent, and he took her basically from a school play. She was like leaving to go pick up her brother or something, and he picked her up outside and killed her 4 hours after the attempted abduction of Carol DeRanche. Yeah. So there was also a victim in Colorado at a ski resort. She was found 29 days later, so forth and so forth. So Eventually, he gets caught by the police. He gets pulled over in Utah. Cop is doing his due diligence, pulls him over, and they look in his car, and he has a rape kit or a burglar kit in his car. And the cop's like, what the fuck is this? And he's like, well, doesn't everyone have one of these in their car? I mean, it's for emergencies. Cop's like, I don't know what kind of emergencies you're looking for here, dude, but this is weird. This is suspicious. This is sus. What the fuck is all this? No. So they bring in Carol. They do a lineup. Carol immediately sees him and she's like, yep, there he is. That's Detective Roseland. Spoiler alert, he wasn't a cop. So they go to trial and he's found guilty. Yay! And that's where the story should end. But no, it doesn't. So while he's on trial, he's about to get extradited to Colorado, because remember the girl at the ski resort? Karen Campbell. She was a nurse, 23. Her body was found like 29 days later, nude in the snow. Yes. So Ted escapes 2 times. Not 1 time, 2 times. Jesus Christ, these cops are just fucking like, who are these? It's like derelict of duty. Talk about, oh my God, I hope people lost their jobs. So Ted decides to represent himself, and he gets access to the law library in the courtroom. Yeah. And they actually take his shackles off, his handcuffs are off, his waist shackle is off, like he's just like an ordinary dude. Cop goes out, leaves him unsupervised, goes outside to have a smoke. Ted sees an open window. It's a 30-foot drop, but he goes for it. I mean, why the fuck not? What do you got to lose? So he jumps, and he's captured a few hours later, I believe. He's got another charge added to him. So while he's waiting trial for the murder, he stays in this jail. It's like a mom and pop jail. And he notices that in the roof above is a little hole, and he thinks to himself, if I just lost some weight, I could probably slither my way out of there. And that's exactly what he did. He lost weight and slithered his way up out of this hole. They didn't know he was missing for something like 18 hours. Ed escapes from this jail, and it's in Aspen, by the way. So he escapes, and he boards a plane in Denver. He flies to Michigan. He actually watches the Rose Bowl between Michigan and the University of Washington. He gets into a fight, and then he steals a car, drives to Atlanta, ditches the car there, and buses it down to Tallahassee, Florida. Why Florida? Because it was so far removed from the Pacific Northwest. It was about as far away from the Pacific Northwest as you can get, and I would have to agree. Florida and Washington State are polar opposites in so many ways. Not just climate, practically every way possible. So yeah, I get it. So he goes under, and the thing about him too is he's very chameleon-like. Like he looks different in almost every picture. It's great. So he ends up renting a room in a boarding house, and one night he sneaks into the Chi Omega house, January, I believe, 1978, and he goes in with a log, and he beats 4 girls, rapes, bites one of the girls' nipples like clear off. 2 of them died, 2 of them survived. And then he goes down the street and he beats the living tar out of another girl. Then he goes like an hour and a half east to Lake City, Florida, and he abducts a 12-year-old girl. Kimberly Leach. Kimberly Leach was like leaving the auditorium at her middle school to go get her purse, and he takes her. So Ted gets abducted, or gets apprehended. He gets beaten up because he's like fighting the cop and everything, and he doesn't even give his real name at first. You know, he just and you know, no one knows who they have at this time because they were communicating, like law enforcement wasn't communicating between, you know, like and Ted knew all this because he actually had experiences working for the Seattle Crimes Division. So he knew like a lot of holes in, like a lot of loopholes and ways you can get around not getting caught. And he actually boasted about it back when he was in Utah to a friend. He's like, well, you know how you commit a crime, right? Because they're all joking about, you know, oh, does this look like you? Like they're holding up this mugshot and they're holding up to each person. And even they hold the mugshot up and it is Ted. They hold it up to Ted and they even say, it didn't look like him. Back to the chameleon part. And Ted says, you know how you can commit a murder and not get caught? You murder her in one county, dump her body in another county, and dump her clothes in another county. And they're like, ah, yeah, that's funny. Oh my God, it's so gross. Oh, Ted is disgusting. The guy who catches him, so they do like this perp walk, and Ted is so smug, and he's got all the cameras around him. He's like, hey, I'm on TV. Ew, Ted. The cop reads his charges and he's like, you said you were gonna get me. Now you're gonna get me. That's all you're gonna get. Yeah, you said you were gonna get me. All right, well, here I am. I'm gonna speak now. Blah, 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 blah. He's like, he's so arrogant. It's so, if you watch it, it's such this like, he's just trying to make himself the alpha, and it's just pathetic. It's just, hey, Karen, why don't you have a seat? You know, like, okay, cool. Right on, Ted. So, but the police, they have that bite mark that he did. Remember that bite mark? Well, yeah, they're going to get him on that. So while he's awaiting trial, the police sneak him out in the middle of the night, and they sneak him in to this like back room. He has no idea what's going on. And when Ted walks in, there's a dentist chair and a dentist. And he's immediately like, he's like screaming for his lawyer. I want my lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And they get an impression of his teeth. And wouldn't you know, it's a match. Thank God, this nightmare is almost over. So, he goes to trial. Where's Liz this whole time? Oh, she gone. Oh, she done with him. He is in her rear view mirror, sort of. I mean, she's got a lot of healing to do, a lot to, you know, but she's done with him. And Ted's got himself a new lady friend. Her name's Carol Boone. Carol Boone she's just a sad person. That's so, like, there's all these ladies in the courtroom, and I'm just like, have some self-respect. This is disgusting. You're just like sitting in the courtroom like, oh, he's so dreamy though. Oh. And then here's Carol. She's like sitting there like, it's my little bunny, my little love muffin, Ted. Ted would never do such a thing. That's my bunny. That's my boo. Ew, it's gross. So the whole trial, he's just like a smart ass. He's smirking, he's laughing. He thinks he's got like, he is so sure he's gonna be found innocent. And he even does this weird thing where he calls Carol Boone to the stand and he like low-key marries her. It's disgusting to watch. The whole thing is just, it's like, shit, dude. And then so he gets obviously found guilty for the sorority murders, and he's even retried for Kimberly Leach. Like, there's 2 trials that happen. First one's the sorority murders, then the next one's for Kimberly Leach. So he gets 2 double death sentences. Yes, he's sentenced to death. I normally don't like the death penalty, but for him, I'll make an exception. The thing that really bothered me the most was the thing the judge said. Take care of yourself. You're a bright man. You had a bright future. I would have loved to have you practice in my courtroom, but you went another route, partner. I have no animosity towards you. I want you to know that. And I'm just like, ew. Like, just the chauvinism. Like, oh yeah, you murdered like 40 women, you raped and murdered them, you cut off their heads, you had sex with their dead bodies, you dumped them in the woods like nothing, like they were nothing. You kidnapped a 12-year-old girl, left her in a hog pen. But yeah, I have no animosity towards you. No, fuck that. No. Gross. I just have so many issues with the blatant sexism, the blatant chauvinism, the blatant, like, he's the man. Like the role, like how the sexual revolution was taking place and how it was evolving and how all these crimes kind of shaped how the sexual revolution would go for women with the Equal Rights Amendment, with Roe versus Wade, and everything that went through in the 70s, women gaining their independence, not wanting to be like oogled or treated as an object. Like, we're not here for people's entertainment. Like, we're not a decoration. We're human beings. We exist, and we should be allowed our autonomy out in public. And all these things are going on, and this judge is just like, I want you to know I have no ill will towards you. Like, cut the shit. You know, cut the shit. He is not, yeah, no. So Ted is sentenced to death at Stark, Florida. He stays in the corrections unit, and you know, he does absolutely shit. You know, he gets all these appeals, but in about 1989, January 24th, he's up for execution. So the day before, just at the 11th hour, hopefully, and he only does it to save his own skin. And it's terrible. He doesn't do it because he has some burst of conscience, like, oh, I gotta unburden this heavy secret I've been carrying. No, he could care less. He tells them everything that he did. And they executed him the next day, which I think is great. And everyone showed up. It was a big party. I wouldn't have gone if I was the age I am now and this whole thing was going on and like it wasn't a big deal to go down there. I still wouldn't have gone. Like, as much as I'm not sad he's gone, and I'm glad he's gone, I'm not gonna show up and party. It's just an excuse for dumb Floridians to get drunk. It's gross. Like, that whole thing, you can see footage of them just all standing around drinking beer, cheering and laughing. They got these tacky shirts on. And like, yeah, I get it, but I also don't get it. I think it's a little much. Like, I'm not going to celebrate it. Like, I'm glad he's gone, but I'm not going to show up and party at his execution. You know what I'm saying? Like, no. So it's also said that he fathered a child while he was incarcerated. I don't know where she is. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, what I said with Gary Ridgway's child. You don't choose your parents. We're going to leave her. I believe it was a girl, but we're going to leave her out of it. She's deserves her privacy. She's obviously wanted to remain anonymous, and we should respect that. The only reason I mention the names that I have is because Liz Clefford has done interviews. Carol's done interviews. All these people that I mentioned have done interviews. And I even believe Carol Boone has done interviews. And even Carol divorced Ted in like 1986. Like, even she got tired of his shit. She's like, oh, you know what? I think he actually did it. Let's just circle back to a few things that I want to highlight for every young lady out there. If your gut says no don't do it. Who gives a shit how you're gonna come off, if you're gonna hurt that person's feelings, whatever, or however that person may react. That is not your responsibility. If you have a gut instinct that something isn't right, you need to trust it and you need to back away. Fuck being polite, pleasing, helpful, all that stuff. If there's something, you sense something wrong, like trust your instinct and just run. I'll share one story, and the only reason I told this guy no was because the first person that popped in my head was Ted Bundy when this happened. This guy, I was like 20 years old. I was meeting my boyfriend. He was working on a building in downtown Seattle, and I was in the parking lot. It was like 3:30 in the afternoon, and my boyfriend was still at work up in the building. There was no one around, and this guy comes up to my window of my car, and he's like, "Hey, I was wondering if you could give me a ride to the gas station. I don't have any money and I need to get some gas, and can I get $5 for gas?" And I was like, and I had red flare, like, woo, sirens were going off. I was like, something ain't right here. No. And I was like, no, I can't. My boyfriend's gonna be off work any minute now. I can't help you. Sorry. And he was like, oh, come on, please. I'm so cute. And he wasn't ugly. He was well put together. He was in a suit. I remember that about him. But he's like, my wallet was stolen. I'm just having the worst day. Do you think you could help me out? And I was like, no, I can't. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. So then I'm sitting there and I see him in my rearview mirror walking down the street, and he has a coffee cup in his hand. He's drinking a fucking Starbucks. And I'm like, what? I thought you didn't have any money, dude. What the fuck? And the weirdest thing happened. He sees this girl walking towards him. He hides his coffee cup and he goes over to her and he's like giving the same spiel. And my blood just runs cold because the only person I can think about is Ted Bundy. Like, dude, what the fuck? I even get out of my car and I'm like trying to like zone in on this girl. Like, no, don't go with this guy. I don't know what the hell. I don't know what kind of thing he's doing here, but it's suspicious. And I see her clear as day shake her head. God, day, do you think you could help me out? Like, come on, please. Like, I am so cute. And I'm like, no, you are not my responsibility. I am not responsible for you. I don't have to help you. That is not my job in this world. You're not obligated, so don't feel like you have to. Anyways, that's about it. Thank you for hanging out with me. Like I said, I didn't really want to do this one because it's so oversaturated. It's ridiculous, and I don't really have any new information. I did get you footage of the area so you could have like a better visual of what things look like today, modern time. I will say the Ave is kind of a dump, but it's always been a dump. And that's in the University District. I didn't go to the campus. The campus is actually very beautiful. The University of Washington campus is gorgeous, especially in the springtime when the cherry blossoms bloom. It's beautiful. But there was a bar that Ted used to frequent called Dante's on the Ave. And it's, I believe, permanently closed now. And I was gonna drive past the place, but there was like a big farmer's market, which I thought was kind of cute. That's enough of Ted. I'm gonna put him away for good. He's dead, he's gone, it's over. I just hope that we can all learn from the situation. And yeah, just stay diligent out there. Stay diligent. Anyways, that's it. Good night.